At the end of Genesis 33, after Esau and Jacob's reconciliation, Jacob settled in Shechem in Canaan. He bought land from the sons of Hamor. So there is the town of Shechem and a son of Hamor named Shechem. Now, as we read scripture, we have to keep in mind that the values and sensitivities of that culture and time were different from ours. For example, we may get angry about how Dinah was treated in chapter 34. However, in biblical times, women were largely considered to be property, and they had no rights to speak of. So we must be careful not to judge them from our 21st century perspective. One thing we have to remember is that centuries from now, our values and sensitivities may be found wanting by the people of that time. Chapter 34, verse 1. Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to visit the women of the region. Now, this is one of the few times in Scripture when the child is identified through the lineage of the mother. In every instance after this, Dinah is identified as the daughter of Jacob, or she's referred to as a sister. So this one time, she is called the daughter of Leah, and we are told that she went out to visit the women of the region. Now, we don't know exactly what this means. Did Dinah just go out to meet some new friends, or did she go out to be seen by people, particularly the young men in the community? We don't know if she went alone. If she did, it certainly would not have been considered proper. We can assume that she was of marriageable age at this point and probably somewhat naive, protected, and sheltered with the women in the family. Whatever small indiscretion there might have been on the part of this girl, it cannot justify what happened to her. While she was out, she attracted the attention of Hamor's son Shechem, and he raped her. Now, afterwards, Scripture tells us that his soul was drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob. He loved the girl and spoke tenderly to her. Shechem went to his father and said that he wanted to marry the girl. Jacob heard about what happened to his daughter. However, he did nothing. He said nothing. He waited until his sons came back from the field, and they were the ones who were enraged. Now remember the family dynamic. Jacob was tricked into marrying Leah. Scripture clearly says that he never loved her. He loved Rachel, his second wife, and Leah's younger sister. It has been suggested that this is why Jacob had less regard for Leah's children. And certainly he did not have much concern about what happened to Dinah. So Hamor and Shechem went to Jacob and his sons to discuss the situation. There was no apology, no mention of what had been done to Dinah, or no mention of the fact that she was still in Shechem's house. Hamor proposed full intermarriage and commerce between the Israelites and the Canaanites, largely pointing out the economic advantages. But then Shechem broke into the conversation with what he was most concerned about, that he would be allowed to marry Dinah. Now, in this time and culture, marriage was always preceded by a betrothal, and the bridegroom's family paid a bride price, or the marriage present, to the bride's family. Shechem offered very favorable terms for Dinah. And then the sons of Jacob gave answer, not Jacob. For them, to marry an uncircumcised man would have been a disgrace. The brothers said that Shechem could have Dinah as his wife, and the Israelites could begin to intermarry with the Canaanites and be as one people, as long as the men of the community were circumcised. So Jacob's sons respond favorably, but Scripture tells us they had no intention of keeping their promises. They agreed, but it was with deceit in their hearts. Hamor and Shechem return and convince the men of the community to be circumcised. Well, while they were recovering from the pain, Jacob's two sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, went in and killed every man in the city. They took Dinah from Shechem's house and they left. And then the rest of the sons went in and plundered the city. Verse 29 says, all their wealth, all their little ones and their wives, all that was in the houses they captured and made their prey. Although there is some element of justice in the revenge, it is clearly over the top. Jacob was dismayed, but not because of the betrayal, the dishonesty of his sons, or the mass murders even, but because of the possible consequences for him. He said to Simeon and Levi, you have brought trouble on me by making me odious to the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites and Perizzites. My numbers are few, and if they gather themselves against me and attack me, I shall be destroyed, both I and my household. But they said, should our sister be treated like a whore? Some things about this story. First, Jacob's passivity is disturbing. Remember Isaac's passivity toward his oldest son, Esau. There can be serious consequences for wrong-headed actions that we take. There can also be serious consequences for choices we make to not act at all, to not fulfill our responsibilities. It's also interesting, as we will see in the weeks ahead, when Jacob's son Joseph was sold by his brothers into slavery, Jacob's heart nearly broke. But the rape of his daughter did not seem to move him at all. There are many victims in this story. Certainly all the men in the community who were killed, and the women and children who were left that became prey for Jacob's sons, and then finally Dinah, taken back to her home and defiled, as Scripture describes it. There is no mention of her again after chapter 34.